we have to take a deeper look at. And the first topic, of course, is when we look at the world stage here, we are going to get to Tesla, but we have to start, of course, with Nvidia. Nvidia today reported earnings, and it's kind of an interesting game with Nvidia these days when you look at what's actually happening. Nvidia is in the situation that it's absolutely killing it. Everyone knows it's killing it. Everyone knows it's at the center, at the eye of the storm, the AGI transformation that is changing the world as we know it. The economy, Silicon Valley, Wall Street, trading, but also the economy at large, white collar. You know the whole thing, and you know that we here at Pioneer Lands believe that we actually reached economic AGI as we speak. And that means all jobs will be replaced very soon, all white collar jobs, much sooner than people think. There will be infinite demand for intelligence, for agentic intelligence, for tokens. And the man in the middle of that entire storm is Jensen Huang, this man, the Superman of AGI. And what does it mean for Nvidia and the earnings? It puts us in a very interesting position. The entire world is watching Nvidia earnings. Nvidia earnings have the potential to absolutely crash the market. If you would see any hiccup on Nvidia earnings, the world is staring at it. The entire GDP growth, the entire economic growth of the United States, and with that, basically the entire world, is hinging on the continued build out and expansion of AGI. And Nvidia is the centerpiece of this whole thing. So if Nvidia has a hiccup, we are going down so hard you have no idea. But at the same time, everyone who knows anything, everyone who works on agents, I'm rebuilding Pioneer Lands, by the way, with agentic AI. Look at this. We have Pioneer Lands daily now. This is the best thing ever. It improves every day. We are building the world's best. It's not even close. Best news, analysis, and research site. And it's great. It's basically the outlet of the Pioneer Academy. But enough of us for now. All of that is only possible because of LLMs, of agentic, of OpenClaw, and because of Nvidia. So anyone who works on this kind of stuff knows that this man has the future in his hands, and that of course Nvidia is not going to disappoint. So we all knew that Nvidia is going to again beat everything, completely wins, is invincible. We know that. There is no one who thought Nvidia is going to miss. And of course, I didn't even dig through all the numbers because it's very new, it's just out. But it's clear they beat on all fronts again. They're winning all over the place. They're expanding their outlooks. What will the stock do? Of course, no one knows. But if expectations are sky high, you know, they are sky high and everyone expects that their super high expectations will even be beat. And then everyone knows it's also going to happen. What happens to the stock? I predicted it again with Nvidia, but I'm not playing it. I just hold a bunch of Nvidia. Of course, nothing happens. Okay, that's the secret here. Everyone expects Nvidia to perform like crazy, to be like the absolute god of growth on the most massive stockpile of chips and margin. And when you have that high of expectations, you can only go down or stay stable if you completely blow it out of the water. And it's very clear that they will blow it out of the water, and they did it again. So that's exactly what's happening to the stock. Nothing. Okay, nothing, because that thing is now worth, how much is it? 5.4 trillion. It's going to go to 6 trillion in no time. Everyone knows it. It's being driven higher, but there is no news here, no information other than, and that is the important news, we are absolutely killing it on all fronts. So for the stock, not too exciting, but it is a very important data point for the market, and for that also for the other Mag 7, for the entire US economy, for the stock market, and of course for Tesla too. By Nvidia delivering again along all expectations, exactly what everyone thought, they're just doing it again. I don't want to go into how insane that is and how much that team is absolutely killing it, but it's just happening. So I see it as not a surprise, fully expected, however, still very important because it validates the core thesis that we have reached the singularity, that we are firing on all cylinders despite being super high with the market, right? We have all-time highs. The Nasdaq is going through the roof, but look at this crazy thing since Iran stopped more or less. We'll get to Iran in a second. But the world knows, okay, what are we going to do? We are on a massive growth trajectory. And you see here my favorite long-term chart, 5 years. We are basically exactly on that track. And now a little above even the trend line since 2023, since AI came to the world stage. Since then, we are just going up at that rate. Now we are accelerating a little bit if you draw this line. But I think it's actually justified. It's very different from the, dot-com bubble. It's different from all kinds of bubbles before, because if you make insane amounts of money, if revenue goes through the roof, if margins go through the roof, it's not a bubble. A bubble, by definition, is the disconnect between stock prices, equity prices, and the underlying fundamentals. Here we see the reverse. Stock prices are kind of lagging the underlying fundamentals. So that's the crazy thing. If anything, we are in a fundamentals bubble, which is a new concept. It's called hypergrowth. But when you understand why we have hypergrowth, what these agents actually do, we are literally building in Pioneer Lands a thing that will be 10 times better than the New York Times. Whatever. Much, much better. You will see very soon. Go to pioneerlands.org. You can witness this now every day or every second day. You will see massive improvements. And when we are ready to come out with our analysis and, of course, the research, it's like a blend between, I don't know, Harvard, Wall Street Journal, New York Times without the woke idiots and on a massively higher quality level. But we are not that many people. Why can we do it? Because of Anthropic, Claude, OpenClaw, and of course Jensen in the background. So if we can do that, other people can do amazing things too. So very exciting stuff, validation of the uptrend, and you see that the news is also pretty positive on this whole thing. Let's see what the latest here is. Live ticker about Nvidia. So Nvidia beats on revenue and guidance, of course, adds $80 billion to buyback plans. So now they're even buying back their shares because they have so much cash that no one knows anymore what they're even gonna do with it. They made 81 billion, insane amounts of money. And this is just absolutely crazy. Data center revenue almost doubles. Like, let that sink in. They are doubling that stuff again and again and again, and there's no end in sight. I'm sure they're working on orbital AI, of course, with SpaceX. We will get to this also in a second. And so this is all very interesting. Okay, now let's take a look at Tesla, our number 2 topic. We are doing it quickly today. Let's go to Tesla. You know that I got completely creamed on Friday. I had the run of a 12 months kind of, iconic run when I bet on Tesla going up in no time back to 400. So I made an absolute killing here. I still am big fat in the green, but I'm not gonna lie, on Friday I got badly creamed. I was completely leveraged into Tesla, which was a tiny little bit of a mistake. Not in hindsight, but when I did it, in my opinion. I got distracted by the rebuild of Pioneer Lands, got so excited I lost track of macro a little bit, but also of the technicals of Tesla. I was back in the saddle. Day later on Monday, I was able to get a handle of it, but on Friday I got absolutely creamed. That was not good, but now we are fully back, and that happens sometimes. It's not a disaster, but it's pretty bad. So Tesla fell, of course, way too much. It fell from 445 hard to 395 within 2 days. Brutal, absolutely brutal. And today started a pretty steep recovery. We're up 3.25%. I had some short calls in between, so I hope we are not going too crazy. I'm all for consolidating here for a day or something. And then we continue probably the way up. But to actually have a good outlook on Tesla, Nvidia was the first proof point, but I had absolutely no doubt that Nvidia is going to kill it again, validating the market. That risk is taken out, and it gives us also a strategic boost for the market, that the market understands, okay, this quarterly checkpoint on the larger AGI thesis, which is Nvidia earnings, has been again successfully taken, and we know, okay, we are still on track, we are exploding in growth, and if Nvidia is exploding in growth, we understand the entire world is exploding in AGI growth. That is why these Nvidia earnings are so important, and that gives us a nice tailwind for the Nasdaq, for the Max 7, and for all the companies that are affected by this. So my take on Tesla is, we definitely got hard rejected multiple times at the 450 range, something between let's say 445, rejected twice, and then boom, fell back hard. On a technical level, we are still totally intact on an upwards trend, but it seems like this 450 situation is a little tough to crack. But it's not just Tesla technicals we are dealing with here. We are also dealing with macro, because when that happened, this rejection, which was probably technical, but this big slide, that also had to do with the greater macro situation. And we have to go back here to CNBC, or as Steve McRyan says, CNBS. We see, of course, oil was spiking and is now dropping, but oil was in a bad situation on Monday. Today in a much better situation. That's why the market is up 1.5%. But when you go back on here, you see that oil was absolutely not in a good spot. So it went up like crazy here. You see that spike? That is when Tesla started dropping hard, because the market got jitters on Friday. Oil is up too much on Friday, not today. Today was good. Oil is up way too much, and yields. Let's go to bond yields. The bond yields also got absolutely slaughtered. Again, today very good. Today we had a huge relief in all these metrics. I will get to it in a second why. But on Friday, look at this. This drove Tesla down. This was the problem. So we saw this here, or this drove Tesla down here. We saw this continuous uptrend, very scary, on the 15th, all the way to the 18th here. Why is this so jumpy? And so that was very, very concerning. And then here we had this spike on the 19th. Look at this. We were at 468. Not good. And we were even higher before. This chart is somehow broken. Where is this? So, and the bottom line is, we had a tense situation where there was a little bit of a scare. And that's what I'm telling everyone who's so Tesla obsessed. It's very important to zoom out sometimes, or all the time. Every day you stare at Tesla. Don't just stare at Tesla, the fundamentals. Don't just count the robo taxis. And don't just look at the technical analysis. Zoom out and ask yourself two questions. First question is, what is AI doing? Because Tesla is an AI stock. What is Tech and Max 7 doing? Because Tesla often moves in sync. And then take an additional step back and look at the big macro situation. What is Iran doing? And downstream, what are yields doing? Bond yields, when they are up, stocks get scared. For a very simple reason, in case you didn't know. If bond yields go up a lot, if bonds fall and the yields go up, because you can buy these bonds at the same yield per year now cheaper, which means you get higher yield. If you get higher yield, the incentive to take any kind of risk in equities, especially in higher risk in growth equities like Tesla, goes down. If you get 5% free with treasuries, why buy stocks? You just go leverage into treasuries and make 20% with no risk, or little risk. So that is why it's bad if these yields go up. And of course, if oil goes up, people get very scared too. And I explained that before. We are now reaching the tail end of this Iran conflict. Don't forget, the Strait of Hormuz is still closed. And people are very scared, because if it stays closed another 2 weeks roughly, we start to hit long-term damage territory, where it gets very hard to recover from that for the world economy. Because even if there's peace and the strait is being reopened, let's say in 2 months or in 1 month, we will have long-term damage that's not easily reversible. that will hit the entire economy guaranteed. So that drags down then everything. Of course, AGI is a counterweight, pulls us up, and I think it overrides a little oil price elevation. But of course, let's not kid ourselves. Oil is very important. Iran remains very important, and we have an additional tail risk that is unclear if Trump starts this whole thing again, and then we are in bad territory. Of course, Donald Trump understands. He's smart enough to understand it's a very bad idea to escalate this again. Iran can escalate against the US, and of course, Iran can start bombing and destroying all kinds of oil infrastructure if they want to. We also know more hardliners are now in charge that are willing to fight. We also know that you can't really defeat Iran. Not everyone knows that, but I know that. I think Trump knows it. So this is kind of the situation where most people, including on Wall Street, as you can see on the markets, are betting the same way I'm betting, that Trump is smart enough to understand the situation, that escalation is kind of absolutely off the table, because it would be absolute suicide, but there's always a tail risk. Who knows? And it seems also that Iran has nothing against escalation at this point. Of course, they're probably not actively pushing for it, but they are not totally against it. They see advantages in it. So it is a risky situation. We just have a certain trust, me, and I think most institutional investors in Trump, that he's not going to do something stupid. Now we are coming to kind of a close of the conflict or a decision point, because we need to make this work now somehow. And I think the market is still betting on this being over. I'm betting on this being over, but can I get scared? Can everyone get scared? Yes. So we have to keep watching it, and it's definitely not something that will drag on forever. It is something that will come to some decision point. I'm a little concerned about the long weekend. I'm a little concerned to be fully leveraged in Tesla right now, even though I think most likely this is all fine. Most likely we are going back to a positive market situation. Most likely this was all just a nice little breather. If you look at all the different technicals here, the Nasdaq, you see, nice little breather, right? And now we are up again here, and short term, same thing, right? We went up like crazy. Then we had these 2 very bad days also on the Nasdaq. Totally natural. This is a very healthy breather. And now we are, potentially going to rally again. Same with Tesla, right? You go up like crazy. You take a little bit of a big breather. Now we are ready to rally up again to 450, and then maybe this time break through and go to my all-time highs that I predicted. I think this is all completely intact. The problem is that Friday scare, oil prices exploding short term, yields exploding, that is a warning shot that this is not just a technical breather, there is also fundamental fear here that can be reignited at any point in time. So the way I see it is, I'm generally bullish. I generally believe in my thesis that we go back to the 445 level and then we go back to 490, as I said, and that all of these little problems here are, in the grand scheme of things, seemingly just technical, normal, and healthy retracements to breathe a little bit, to continue the rally. But, and Nvidia is another proof point of that. We are green, we are good, we can keep going very nicely. But let's not forget, on Friday, that scare was not a technical scare. On Friday, the scare was a fundamental scare. So we should not forget, we are sitting on like a little bit of a problematic situation. Iran needs to be resolved. I just think it will, because the forcing functions on Trump and also on Iran, to be honest, from the China side, are strong. There are strong forcing functions on the US, a little less strong, but still strong on Iran, to put it to rest. And not putting it to rest and escalating would be really mad. And when something is really mad and really bad for Trump himself, odds are he's not going to do it. But am I totally sure? No, there is risk here. So that is the situation. I am bullish, biased. I think we are ready to rally again, but we need to be a little cautious. And Friday, and getting creamed on Friday, was a little bit of a warning. So I think, let's see what happens over the long weekend. If we are fine, I think we go back to 445, but we can get rejected again. I remember that the typical Tesla behavior. We have to be cautious. The higher we go, the weaker the bull runs get, and the more the rejection happens, unless we see a real catalyst. So that's how we have to position ourselves. So leverage a little bit cautious, and we go from there. That is my quick take for today in the middle of the week. Sometimes you have to assess the situation. Let's see what we have in the chat. Oh, we're talking politics already in the chat. Vance is a fraud. Well, we get to this in a second. Andrea Auer says, hi, Joe, first in the chat. That's very nice. Hi, Andrea. Palondrian, 85% revenue growth. PE multiple dropped from 45 to 30. Exactly. Absolutely crazy what happens to Nvidia. 85% revenue growth. PE is now at 34. Unbelievable. 80% of the time Nvidia sells off after earnings. Sure, there will be, sure, but sell off is like, last time was bigger than I thought. But if it sells off, it's just a buying opportunity. I mean, you can't just sell the stock that is going through the roof, fundamentally. Oh, of course, we have SpaceX discussions here. I forgot to mention that. You guys have to watch it. I have to sleep, but you guys have to watch a very important thing. I will get to this later. Let's get to it later. First, do some chats. But SpaceX is the big day today. Very big day. V3 Starship test launch. Unless they cancel it, but I don't think so. So that will be very important. I will get to this later. Rainer Zufall says, when will we see $500 Tesla? Well, I think once Robotaxi does something and comes to life, which can happen, I think, anytime now. It could also take a little while. I think to break 500 for good, we need to see some Robotaxi action. Joe, why didn't you just roll for extra premium and give the stock yourself some room to recover back up? I don't understand why you closed them out. That's a complicated question because I have a lot of stuff going on. I roll all the time. I don't care too much about the charges. I always pay my fees on interactive brokers. What do we have here? Think the yen carry trade is gonna unwind, or is that just FUD? Well, that's a good point. I think it inevitably is gonna unwind. The question is it gonna be a gradual unwind or is it gonna be a panic unwind? If it just over time unwinds, which it has to, if you look at the yields, so yen carry trade basically means the Japanese yields are super low, so all the poor Japanese people, poor, you know what I mean, they're very rich, but they're poor because they don't get yield. They have to get it into the United States, and that was always a stream of liquidity from Japan. That is unwinding because now the Japanese yields are going up like crazy, and that will be withdrawn. So I'm not too concerned about that, to be honest. Not because it's not happening, but because it's so transparent that it will happen gradually over time and has happened to some extent. So I don't think it's a shock. I think it's a constant drag on liquidity that I'm not too concerned about, to be honest. Because shocks are the danger, not something everyone knows about, and that is already happening. Okay, where were we? Think Trump is an immoral fool. Oh my God, now we get into politics. I have to be cautious because on both sides, we have radical pro-Trumpers and we have radical anti-Trumpers. I tend to be, I want to be level-headed. I think Trump is not a fool. Trump is very intelligent. Trump has issues. There's clearly something weirdo going on with Iran. No one can really explain it. Trump is just a puppet. I mean, I think he's not a puppet. He has a lot of things going on, and he is a politician. He has to listen to the forces who are pulling on him. But he also understands the polls and the interests of Americans, and he understands what's politically going on, and he is navigating it. And that's not easy. I'm planning to sell my Nvidia for SpaceX. Well, let's see. I think SpaceX, by definition, will be totally overvalued because it's so hot. And I'm a big SpaceX fan, but is the IPO a good deal? Oof, I just don't think so. Okay. Trump not going to do anything stupid. That's a dangerous. No, I truly believe Trump is extremely uncrazy and unstupid. Trump is very calculating and has a very holistic understanding of the situation. But of course, that doesn't mean he does the right thing in, from our perspective. But he's not a dummy and he's not crazy. Nvidia earnings call is live. Yes, but we are not going to do that too much. Then we have here political things. And when or if Vance gains power, Trump haters will say the same thing about Vance. Sure, Vance. Well, Vance is a whole interesting story. If Friday is bad, I agree. Are you considering closing short-term bets, closing Thursdays? Yes, I am really concerned about, I'm not betting on anything going down, but if there's an Iran escalation, it will happen over the weekend because we have all these things running out. We know Trump likes to do things over the weekend. So I'm a little concerned. I will probably take a little margin off, a little leverage off on Thursday into close to not be too exposed on Friday because, I think we're in a situation where Friday will be a fear day because we have 3 days with no control, with that thing hanging over us, unless something big happens tomorrow. So yes, taking the foot off the gas a little bit on tomorrow. Nvidia has competition from Intel, AMD, Google, Amazon, and Cerebras. That is correct. SpaceX has very little competition. Yes, I agree, but also Nvidia is incredibly low valuation. And SpaceX is incredibly high valuation. So it's not just about who has competition, who has not competition, who's in a better position fundamentally. You also have to look at the price. And SpaceX is as hyped as it gets. So with SpaceX, you have something, of course, it's insanely bullish. And of course, if you invest now and hold for 5 years, you probably make a ton of money. But what are the odds you get SpaceX cheaper than at IPO? I think 80% in the next 12 months. Not 100%. I might be the dummy, right? Maybe it just goes up, but it's incredibly unlikely. Predicting stock prices is like predicting winter storms. I never try to predict winter storms. Probably hard. I'm convinced Iran situation will escalate, says Endo. Iran will pretty much force Trump to attack them. Do you expect a strong market reaction when the bombing of Iran starts again? I agree that Iran has a lot of incentives to escalate or to make Trump attack them. But Trump also has enormous incentives not to attack them. And China is putting pressure on Iran to not escalate again. China does not want that. So China is the key influencer on Iran, in my opinion, obviously. Of course, China might have some interest in the US getting dragged into this thing. Russia too. So it's a little tricky, but I think if I look at the players, I think Putin would love this war to escalate because it's extremely bad for the United States. Not that Putin is a total US hater, but I think, of course, why not if you're Putin? I think China, even though they also want to see the US a little weakened, they don't think like that. They think more like, don't destroy our oil. So I think China is weighing against it. Putin may be a little for it that Iran escalates, but Trump definitely doesn't want an escalation. So I think, yeah, objectively, it's not unlikely that this escalates again. Now, will that lead to a total market crash? I don't know. It's all about the feeling of the market. Will the market believe, oh God, this gets dragged out, and will oil actually get destroyed, infrastructure? I think then the market tanks, yes. But if it's just an attack of the US, we have to see how much this escalates. If it escalates into destruction of infrastructure, then it gets very serious, in my opinion. Okay. Amour de Paris says, Trump does the bidding of his donors like all politicians. That is for sure, but he has different types of donors. Don't forget that. And the donors are not the only thing that counts. Trump has to do the bidding of all stakeholders. Nvidia has competition. We had that. How do you feel about using EchoStar as a proxy to participate in the SpaceX pre-IPO run-up? I think this is all pretty much done. I think we're a little late for these games because, I mean, the IPO is here. So I think trying to play this right now is a little late. I feel we are late to that game. So I'm not playing much on SpaceX. I'm analyzing it. I'm building fundamental insight here because for me, it's a long game. I think once they're public, then it gets very interesting because then we will absolutely cover this. And Tesla, of course, will have a huge impact on Tesla, obviously. Okay. Wow, so many comments. We will get to all of you guys. Here, just because the Trump administration doesn't advertise everything doesn't mean things aren't happening. Very disciplined, rather novel strategy these days. Sure, but what does that mean? Maybe, but we have to predict if this escalates again or not. I'm just saying the incentives for de-escalation are extremely high. My portfolio after the SpaceX IPO will be Nvidia, Tesla, and SpaceX. Well, I will, by the way, I'm absolutely buying some shares in the IPO, but just for tracking reasons. I learned that I need to own shares to really pay attention, but I will not have any significant position in SpaceX. I do not think SpaceX is going to make me money if I buy the IPO over a 3 to 6 months period. I truly don't believe that. But SpaceX is the most interesting investment that I will watch. And when it gets cheap, I'm going to load up on it. Nvidia doing its thing, going down. Should we check on Nvidia here? Where is my Nvidia chart? Where are we right now? In aftermarket, why is this not here? Let's see. Chick. Nvidia. It's not going down. It's not going down. It's flat. Oh no, it's a little down. This is like peanuts. Are you kidding me? I don't care if this thing goes from 223 to even 210. Who even cares? This is like completely marginal. That's, means basically nothing. Did we lose the screen share here? What's happening? Did we lose the screen share? Yeah. Screen share, Nvidia. Here. Down 1%. Are you kidding me? Tesla was down nearly 10% in like 2 days. So I definitely don't care about that. Okay, let's get back. Let's get back to all the comments. Cursor, Starship. Joe, do you struggle with the fact that the goalpost keeps moving first? The worst interface I have here with these. I don't know how to fix this. What's the goalpost? Where's the goalpost? Moving first was 20 million Teslas, then a gigafactory in Mexico. Now it's FSD and Robotaxi, but that doesn't go well. It's but Optimus. Well, I think I don't care about goalposts moving. I'm interested in the future, and I'm interested in putting it on a timeline, and I'm interested in predicting when things happen. I don't care about goalposts because I'm not listening to Elon, what he says. I'm trying to predict what happens. When I look at Robotaxi, when I look at all the signs, the odds that something big happens this year are very high. I had the conversation with CERN. This is coming up, by the way. I had a great little session with CERN. You probably saw CERN Basha and me talking about SpaceX and Tesla merger. We have another episode coming where we talk about Robotaxi, I think tomorrow. And we discuss Robotaxi in depth. And then we have a third episode coming with CERN and me about MicroStrategy and Bitcoin. That's for the Bitcoin lovers. This is a hot thing. That's probably coming on the weekend. But first, CERN and I discuss Robotaxi and why. It's interesting that Herbert and CERN and me all came to the same conclusion very independently. I did it with my model, CERN with his model, and Herbert, in his mind, we all believe that by end of this year, the odds are we will have between 10 and 20,000 cyber caps unsupervised. If that happens, there's no goalpost moving anymore. Then we have the big breakthrough. And there are many reasons to believe that. So you should watch that episode when it comes out tomorrow. So that's happening there. Do you keep track of resistance and support levels? Yes, but only as a side hobby. So I'm like, yeah, I'm looking at the charts, but I'm not like, I think technical analysts contribute to the heuristic and understanding, but you have to be very cautious and you have to always put into context with fundamentals, with robotaxi, and maybe even more important with macro. Okay, if you would do technical analysis on Tesla and the market in parallel, I think then you have more information. So I'm looking at it, but more as a side 10%, 20% heuristic feeder for me. So I think it matters. Sometimes I talk badly about the technical analysts, the stock astrologers, as I know, call them, jokingly. But I think they're doing a great job, and I can learn from it, but you have to be cautious. It's a little bit like astrology, by the way, because astrology, everyone makes fun of it. But when I look at astrology, well, some stuff is stupid, but when it comes to your star signs and zodiacs, there is something there. But do I believe it? Of course, not really. But it's a helpful, it's like you have it in the back of your brain. It helps you to think about things and helps you categorize. So that's a little bit, it's truly stock astrology because it's overrated by those who believe in it. But for those who just hate it and think it's complete bogus, it might not be complete bogus. And so you have to learn how to use it. So I think stock astrology is pretty much what technical analysis is. And that's both that's both a bad and a good thing. That's how I see this whole thing. Thanks for addressing my comment. Person turquoise waving speech. Of course, Ando. And Andrea says, if Starship version 3 goes well and Iran cleared, the Tesla most probably all-time high. Yes, but that's a big yes. I totally agree. But these are two big ifs. And Elon already hedged his bets, and he said, well, we have 10 Starships in production. It's overrated. He already played down tonight because he's very nervous, obviously. I would be very nervous. I think it's incredibly important what happens tonight. On a tactical short-term level, it will totally impact the IPO. It will totally impact SpaceX price because the question if these things blow up or not is actually incredibly important. I will talk more about this over time. We work on the financial models, and the question if these rockets blow up or not has a direct impact on insurance, even if it's self-insured. And this insurance is underrated. It basically triples the costs of launch. Basically, 66% of launch costs are not launch costs. It's risk. If you have 90 million launch costs, you probably have 200 million on top of the 90 million for insurance. Because if you blow up a rocket, you have to pay for the whole thing. Not just for the rocket, but for the cargo. That is the problem. So, and how do you calculate the risk? By looking how many blew up. So if you blow one up, it's not great. It's actually bad. Joe, pull up the SpaceX S1. The numbers are gross. Yeah, I understand. This is all about the future. It's about massive growth in Starlink, and it's about orbital AI. And I think people underestimate orbital AI. I think it's totally nuts what's going to happen. Wow, we have so many comments today. What's going on? I earned $105,000 of premium in 2 put trades, 15 contracts at 410 and 440, an average of 70 per share. $70 per share? How did you do that? It depends on your expiration. That's not weeklies. So if I were to take the assignment in November, my basis would be 340. Yeah, these are long-term. Yes, sure. Highly unlikely to be that price in November 2026. I don't know which price, but yeah, IPO. I think SpaceX IPO will be overvalued. Macro softer says Trump was surprised. Trump was surprised how little the stock market went down because of Iran, maybe being at all-time highs emboldened him to escalate military action. I don't think so, because his advisors and himself, they know this is politically pretty bad what's happening, and the market is only not down because it thinks there's no escalation. SpaceX in 5 years? Well, we have to wait for SpaceX to understand what the stock price actually is in the valuation, then we can do the modeling. We are definitely going to do a lot of modeling there. B. Wigforsh says technical analysis mostly about probabilities. Exactly. Just if you do technical analysis, it just gives you some heuristic and probabilistic layers on top of the other layers you have. So by combining them with the macro perspective, with political and geopolitics and macro, then you're getting somewhere. Here, Cryptopractor says a lot of comments and not enough people hitting the like buttons. Exactly. Hit the like buttons. I think it's about the psychology of big institutions around these patterns. Yes, I mean, this is self-fulfilling to some extent. I agree. But it also has to do with technical, like I like the technical perspective, but it's not just about the charts. You have to understand what these charts mean. For example, resistance. What does resistance mean and what does a floor mean? There is something behind that, right? Because the totality of the market, no single player, but the totality of the market has certain ideas about what they believe in terms of what a good price is, what's overvalued, what's undervalued at any given point in time. So if you run into a 450 resistance and nothing fundamentally changes in the market or in the stock, that's why I'm saying it goes back to all-time highs. It just means the critical amount, the totality of people just doesn't feel it anymore with Tesla at 490. They say, yeah, it's a little high, I should sell some. And the aggregate action of that reflects in that price. And that's why I have this reasoning. If nothing changes, the company is just in better shape and the market is at all-time highs, logically it will go to 490, because that is proven to be the point to that people are willing to get Tesla to before they bail at a certain point in time of the company, which was December 16th, 2025. So Rocket Lab is best compared to SpaceX. It might go up if people don't want to be too dependent on Elon. That's true, but Rocket Lab is also dramatically overvalued. It's an amazing company, similar to SpaceX, but there's too much hype in the whole space thing, in my opinion. So Rocket Lab, same thing, super hot company. I think it's too expensive. Herbert had Larry on, and Larry thinks Tesla will hit all-time highs when SpaceX IPOs. Would you agree? I think, yes, there is something. I think there is a logic to the idea that people believe there will be a merger. I also believe it. I don't know when. I think it's an incredibly complicated thing, but there is an incentive to get it done fast. So it could happen this year. And if that happens, the most likely outcome is a one-to-one merger, because everything else would be a total mess. How do you even explain anything else? And a one-to-one merger means that there is a magnet effect. Even if just everyone believes it, there's a magnetic effect that pulls Tesla share price or market cap towards SpaceX. But if SpaceX goes down, it also hits Tesla. So I do think it's not a hard forcing function, but there's a soft magnetic function that pulls Tesla market cap towards SpaceX once this is public. I do think that is true. Street cred 0, resistance is the psychological factors you were talking about, but keep in mind that it's the institutions who have the most money to move the markets. That is true, but institutions are also not one blob, right? I mean, it's, I think in the end, everyone is doing their thing, and a critical mass of people across retail and institutions is listening or using technical analysis, and that's to some extent a recursive function. Then what did we have up here? When you calculate the self-insurance cost for SpaceX for internal cargos, do you take into account that SpaceX can do it at their wholesale cost? Yes, absolutely, Street Cred 0. Absolutely. This is about but here you have to understand the math. Let's assume you have 150 tons of cargo. The important thing is, yes, the actual launch cost, even if Starship is not reusable, is already at $800 per kilogram, much lower, even if you don't reuse it because it's so massive and efficient. Whatever it is, you're getting to very good COGS, like on their own internal cost. But the main problem with insurance is that the launch cost and the rocket is the smallest piece of the cost. A much bigger piece of the cost is the cargo. Imagine you're shipping 150 tons of Nvidia GPUs up there. Do you know how much money this is? So if you have $1 billion in cargo value and 100 million in launch costs in the actual rocket, the rocket blows up. Sure, they're getting a discount because it's their own rocket, but they're not getting a discount on the cargo. And someone has to pay for the cargo. You have to calculate that in. Someone has to pay for it, so it gets into the launch costs. So if you blow up a Starship with full cargo, it's going to be very expensive. I mean, you can do the math. You know, it just adds to the launch cost, and that's the problem. What else do we have here? Oh, we also have to wrap up in a second. Your Tesla DCF model, I imagine, would need significant updates post the SpaceX merger. Yes. I mean, not just updates. We need a whole new model. We need to merge the two models. Are we still going to the moon by 2030? I think we are going to the moon. You mean, are we? Now I'm confused. Do you mean we go to the moon? We have a 2028 lunar mission. So we are going to the moon in 2028. But I do think if we merge, that, yeah, by 2030, we will have made more money. That is my estimate right now. We will have made more money than holding Tesla alone, because SpaceX is going to be absolutely nuts. When will we see boots on the ground in Iran? Maybe Optimus in Terminator. We will see about that. Not anytime soon with Optimus Terminators. Isn't it a period of time when the shares of an IPO can't be sold? Can Tesla and SpaceX merge in this interval? You can absolutely sell shares in an IPO, but the people who are already shareholders, when you have the IPO, they have a lockup period. I don't know how long that is. We have to look it up, probably 6 months. But everyone else who buys into the IPO can, of course, sell it next day. What's going on with the 500 inactive robotaxis in California and the roughly 50 in Texas? Why does Tesla keep adding more robotaxis to the fleet if so many are inactive? Well, no, the robotaxi tracker is a little crude because it also misses out on all the cyber caps. We have hundreds of cyber caps in my case, for sure hundreds. If you just add up Joe Tegmeyer's like drone footage, we have hundreds of cyber caps. Where are they on the robotaxi tracker? I don't see them anywhere. So what are these cars doing? Where are they? They must be doing something. I'm not saying they're in unsupervised commercial mode, but they're somewhere. They're being deployed all over the place. So the robotaxi tracker is getting a little bit inaccurate in my opinion. So no one knows. What do you think of ARM up 18%? Well, the semiconductors are just on a complete, like, insane run up. And normally when that happens, I always tend to not chase things because I don't understand them sufficiently. And now you're in a technical situation, like you don't know how much they can be driven up. You don't know when they crash. Look at Micron Technologies, look at AMD, they go up and down like insane. Of course, they're going up mostly, but then they have like negative 20% days. So this is a very dangerous game, I think. Andy says, yes, stock price to the moon, reassuring you think the combined energy will be more fruitful. Yes, I think by 2030, if we merge now, I think it will be disadvantageous, very likely, for Tesla shareholders on a 12 to 18 months scale. But even on a 24-month scale, we might make more money with a merged entity. It's very simple. We have all the bull case down for Tesla. We understand what's going to happen. That's why we are bullish. I think on SpaceX, people have not thought this through yet. And I tell you guys, if Starship works, and I do think it will work, if Starship works by 2027, you have to understand two things why I'm so bullish. Number one, people vastly underestimate how much compute we need. We need infinite compute and we need it immediately. You can make infinite money if you had infinite compute, okay? Number two, compute is energy constrained. It's all about energy. And when you look into data center build out, just do that. Like pretend you're a little entrepreneur and start using AI to Google your business model. Like I want to build a gigawatt data center in Europe, in Australia, in the US, in Canada. Try to solve that problem. You will run into 10 million issues, like serious issues. Where's the energy? Where's the gas turbines? Where's the policy? Do I get killed by politics? It's a total nightmare, and it's a huge problem, and it's a cost problem and a regulatory problem. In space, it's all gone. You just sign something, you're in space. You can just endless energy, endless perfect. So you have an enormous push function. And then on the other side, what holds us back? You need Starship. Okay, that needs to work. And then you need these stupid little satellites. This is so easy, the satellites. People got it completely wrong. Even Jensen, even Amazon, Jeff Bezos, they don't understand how easy that is for SpaceX. And so when I put these two together, that people overestimate how complicated orbital AI satellites are, I think everyone understands Starship is very important. I'm not saying there's a bias. I think the market is realistic about Starships. Like, well, it's a risk, but it seems to get along there. So I think it's just going to happen. I think they overestimate the complexity of these satellites, and they completely underestimate the insane push pressure on building that. And when you combine these things, I think it will happen much sooner. I think by 2028, we will have orbital AI at scale. I think in 2028, we will see real scale, the beginning of a real scaling curve for orbital AI, which is far earlier than people assume. You know, don't forget, 2028 is only 18 months away, or whatever, 18, 19, 20 months away. And I think that's the year when we see this stuff becoming a reality. And then you have an infinite margin function where you can just scale the hell out of it. And if that happens, it beats Tesla starting in 2028. Adam Tangi says, I have great Starlink coverage in Southern Hemisphere, Melbourne, Australia. That is very good. Do you buy SpaceX on day one? No, I think it's overvalued. Loving the SpaceX due diligence to build my conviction there too. Yes, Andy, this is going to highest priority for Pioneer Lands to understand that. Your opinion on the recent alien talk by Trump and others? I think it's so stupid. I hate aliens. I mean, I love aliens. But the talk gets on my nerves. Like, really? Aliens? I don't want to be like a party pooper, but aliens are stupid. I think it's a total distraction. I think Trump loves to talk about everything that's not Iran. Or Epstein, of course. I thought the call was for Nvidia mainly. Can you discuss? Oh. What effect will the earnings release and call have on Nvidia, the market, Tesla? I already said that, Tom, in the beginning. The whole beginning of the session was about Nvidia. Bottom line is, I think Nvidia is super bullish, met all the expectations, exceeded it, but it's not going to really crazy because it's on track to go to 300 probably this year. Anyway, so it will continue its rise, maybe have a little pullback tomorrow because the market just loves to sell Nvidia after earnings. But it's a validation of everything is full steam ahead on the AI side. Paul Davis, thank you for all you do and also for answering questions live. It's great to have your perspective to consider when making on decisions. Well, you're welcome, of course. It's fun for me to have you guys ask me smart questions. Here, Andrea is asking, Anthropic has agreed to pay SpaceX 1.25 billion per month through May for AI compute capacity. Is it that much? I didn't even see that. I thought it was 5 billion per year. With capacity ramping in May and June 2026 at a reduced fee, and it's just a start. Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's absolutely clear. It's crazy. Are you concerned about the usual midterm seasonality tanking the market? I may consider selling calls if we make one last pump to 490. Well, Andy, like the macro situation with Iran, the midterms, yields, the debt, the world in general, like I view it like this, the market. I think everything in the world is more or less bad. Everything is really bad with one exception. And that exception is the age of AGI. We are sitting on the singularity and the biggest explosion of capability and economic growth ever. Okay? That's incredibly bullish. Everything else, society, civilization, dead bombs, real bombs, everything is a disaster, everything else. So that creates a very interesting fragile situation, or not that fragile, because we have a massive boost in productivity and power, and at the same time everything else goes to shit. That is the situation that will unfold even more extreme in 2027, but in the midterms, yes. So we have to be a little cautious. There will be tons of mega shocks. What does it all mean? I think this AGI trajectory is an enormous pull function to keep us up here, especially Tesla, especially Nvidia, especially Mag 7, especially SpaceX. So if you own Walmart or something, I don't know exactly what happens to these guys. Oil, everything energy related is hot. But generally, I'm not bullish on stability in the world. I'm not bullish on political stability. I'm not bullish on the economy in the sense of the totality of people. I'm just insanely bullish on productivity and margins. So bottom line is, it's definitely not all rainbows and gold pots. It's extremely dangerous territory, but the central AGI function is just extremely overpowering everything else. Joe, will Nvidia GPUs be able to run GTA 6? Why would they not? I don't know. Did they drop the ball on gaming? I don't think so. But gaming is not the main priority. On X is lately much talk about Nvidia and Nokia. Nokia? What's happening there? I didn't even follow that. Elon promoting Cursor. Do you think SpaceX is going to buy them? Well, it's very simple. They have an option to buy Cursor for 60 billion or something. I think they're playing around with it right now. They're looking how much Cursor can get a boost from X, from Grok, and from, of course, the compute. And I think it's very smart. They pay 10 billion, do a little test run, and have the call option to buy it for 60 billion. If the tests go, in the right direction, they will buy it. Will they buy it? Probably. I mean, it's the age of AGI. Cursor has tremendous value, and if you're totally frank, Grok is not a team that can compete with Anthropic. So getting more talent in the door and more tech, probably good. And 60 billion, I mean, what does that even? It's like nothing. Pocket change. Why Kathy Wood's performance is so bad? Well, that's why you have to go to pioneeralpha.org. Did we talk about that? I will wrap up the call with pioneeralpha.org. Of course, I have to put in my latest performance numbers because of this whole revamp of Pioneer Lands. I'm totally behind, but here you see Pioneer Alpha. So these numbers are a little better than they currently are. We are down by like whatever. We are 15% lower or something. So that was pretty bad. But of course, Tesla is also much lower. So we still beat the S&P. So Pioneer Alpha, where do I have that? Do I have that here? We can look at Kathy Woods in Pioneer Reserve, where we have the benchmarks. Here, you can look at Kathy Woods for, what do you want to see? Year to date. Pioneer Alpha versus ARC-Q. ARC-Q's up 17%. We are up 36%. That means we beat Kathy there. ARC-K is up 2%. So we're beating them by 33.93%. And that's just this year. If you go to 2 years, let's see what happens. They are up 78%, but we are up 311%. Oh, this is pretty extreme. But since inception, they're up 51%. We are up 166%. We're beating Kathy with 115% alpha. That's pretty extreme. RQ's maybe better. RQ's pretty good. 133% up. We only beat them by 32%. So that is since 2024 January. So there you have it. That's what they are doing. Seems like biggest risk to Elon companies is if something happens to him. That's true, but you have to also look at this statistically. How often has a top CEO been, whatever, taken out of the game? I mean, Steve Jobs with cancer, but that took a long time and that was not a shock. That was like over years and years. So yes, it would be terrible, of course, but when you look at the statistics, you have to look like an insurance broker on this side. Like what, like how are these things, the people called who do the insurance people who do the risk assessment. What's the word? So these people, you have to think like them. What are the actual odds that something happens to Elon? Statistically, they're very low. I thought Cursor is just, yeah, Luigi. Well, I think Elon has much better protection than this guy had. I thought Cursor is just a subset of MS Visual Code. Not sure where the values. I think Cursor is more advanced than MS Visual Code. But who knows? Okay, guys, time to wrap up. I need to go to sleep. I'm in Europe. But I hope you guys, actuarial, exactly. That's the actuators. Actuators, that's the robots things. Actuarials. These are the people who do it. Like, look it up, ask the AGI, ask the AI, ask Claude how to do it, and then how to do that with. Andy says Pioneer Alpha is definitely intriguing to me. The performance numbers aren't fabricated, right? No, they're not. I'm not allowed to fabricate them. This is audited stuff. Joe, your volume is always low. I get very different feedback. Some people say it's fine, some people say it's low, and they only say it on live. So maybe it's a live problem that some people get lower volume and some don't. Let's see. Okay, everyone. So go to pioneeralpha.org to check this out. Go to Pioneer Lens Daily, pioneerlens.org. That's where all the cool new action happens. Look at this beautiful page that we built with the best news ever. And I hope to see you there. I hope to see you tomorrow. We have something cool coming out again with CERN, a very exciting interview about robotaxis where we discuss the robotaxi trajectory. And we have more coming up. SpaceX will be interesting tomorrow. We will see how it goes. Soon they will launch, very soon, at 6:30 or something. I think, ET. So watch out for it. Okie dokie. So see you guys next time. Thanks for tuning in. And watch Starship go to space in an hour or something. See you then. Bye-bye.